Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So this is my horse to follow for 2023, and I'm going to give an explanation as to why this horse is going to be my horse to follow. Looking at some previous races and some previous examples of horses that I've highlighted that I think are going to be very smart going forward and have proven to be so. Looking at last year's horse to follow from 2022, you can see on screen I went for Constitution Hill. At this time, he'd just won a novice hurdle at Sandown, beating Might Eye and Outlaw Peter, or Outlaw Pete. And I said I think he'll win a Tolworth, a Supreme, and a champion, and be a champion hurdle contender. I think he's more than a champion hurdle contender, isn't he? He's the short price favourite for it, and could potentially be a lot of people's best horse they've ever seen in training. So let's have a look at Constitution Hill and why he made my horse to follow, and a few other examples, and then we'll come on to my horse to follow and I'll show you the exact same reason. So we'll start off looking at Constitution Hill, who won this novice event at Sandown, and we can see these R figures over here for Might Eye and Outlaw Peter. 152.8 and 149.0 for their first efforts over hurdles. Now these are really high R figures. Now these R figures are figures that we at Rating the Races calculate ourselves. So it's a great reason to sign up for Rating the Races. You get these figures that can really help you going forward. So I said that Might Eye and Outlaw Peter had already achieved these really high figures, and yet on debut Constitution Hill was not only able to beat them, but beat them really comfortably. And that's why I then made a blog about it, and I did say I believed that this was going to be a superstar, and he proved to be a superstar. Might Eye has obviously gone on to, probably his best run is finishing second in a Grade 1 behind 3 Stripe Life. And Outlaw Peter, he's won a few races, he's finished second a few times. He was last seen winning another novice hurdle. So I think the form has worked out okay as well, and obviously we know Constitution Hill is an absolute monster. I really believe he's the best horse I've ever seen. So let's have another example. Let's look at this one here, which was Lossymouth in a juvenile Grade 3. She beat Zarek the Brave and Comfort Zone. Now let's have a look over on the right hand side for those R figures. Look at those R figures for the second and third horses, Zarek the Brave and Comfort Zone. 156.4 and 153.1. In juvenile company, they're very, very good figures. So again, I was saying that Lossymouth, I therefore believe, is a very smart juvenile. And I said at the time, I think the 4-1 is a very, very fair price about her for the Triumph Hurdle. She won yesterday or the day before, and she is now, I think, 6-4, 7-4 for the Triumph Hurdle, and I think she'll win that. I do think she's very, very good. Having a look at those behind, Comfort Zone has obviously since won the finale yesterday, beating Dixon Cove and Perseus Way, a Grade 2, franking the form a little bit of Lossymouth, but I don't think her form needs to be franked. She can go and frank her own form. Obviously, we therefore definitely need to look out for Zarek the Brave. Wherever he runs next time, I'd be very keen on his chances, unless he takes on Lossymouth. Another example is, going back a few years now, there was this bumper, which I highlighted straight away. I said there's a few in this race that I'm very keen on going forward. They were Soaring Glory and Brave Man's Game. Soaring Glory has obviously won a Betfair Hurdle since, whilst Brave Man's Game has obviously won the King George a few days ago, and Kid Commando's even won a listed handicap hurdle. Now, why did I like them? Again, let's have a look over on the right hand side, and we can see that Kid Commando had achieved a 150.0 as his R figure in a bumper. So the fact that Soaring Glory was able to beat him, I said, therefore, Soaring Glory is very impressive. With that in mind, Soaring Glory and Kid Commando both looked like 2-milers, and both had the speed over 2 mile in a bumper. And I said that Brave Man's Game will be very smart over further. I think we can safely say he is very smart over further. He's won a King George, he's won a Challow Hurdle, He's a very, very good horse. Does he get the Gold Cup trip, as some people have suggested he won't? I'm not sure, but he certainly deserves his chance in the Gold Cup now. So with all of that in mind, who is my horse to follow for 2023 using the same sort of angle? Well, that horse is going to be Authorised Speed. Look at his R figure last time out, 155.5. So in reality, if we look at this race compared to the time that Constitution Hill won the race, Might I had run a 152.8 and Outlaw Peter a 149.0, and I suggested that Constitution Hill was very, very good because he was able to beat those. I would argue that Immortal, if Immortal was going to beat Authorised Speed, would probably have to have been better than Constitution Hill, or at least very close to Constitution Hill. Now, Immortal wasn't a Constitution Hill. On debut, I think that was a very, very good effort still to finish second. But Authorised Speed has clearly got bags of potential. A 155.5 in a novice hurdle is a very, very high figure for our ratings. So going forward, I think he'll follow the same route as Constitution Hill. This is Authorised Speed. I think he'll go Tolworth Hurdle next. If he wins that, he's not going to be... I think he's like 25s or 33s for the Supreme Novice. He's not going to be that if he wins the Tolworth Hurdle, which I fully expect him to do. He's got the Sandown form. He's got the R figures. He also beat Immortal. Now, why do I keep talking about Immortal? I think Immortal's going to be quite smart. She, I'm just checking it is a she. He was taken to Ascot when Constitution Hill was also meant to run at Ascot. Nicky Henderson was taking just those two. He took both out. He then ran Immortal in the same race that Constitution Hill started off in, almost suggesting that he thinks Immortal is not a Constitution Hill, but he thinks he's one of his better horses, one of his better novices, and yet he was still beaten by Authorised Speed. Trainers like to do that. They like to put horses back in races, in races that they've won previously with very smart horses. Look at John Bon. John Bon won a novice at Newbury a couple of months ago, last year. This time it was a horse called Jet Powered. Jet Powered is 7-1 or 8-1, second favourite for the Supreme Novice. Because Nicky Henderson knew, I know what type of horse is required to win that novice at Newbury, and that's why he ran that Jet Powered. I think he thought he knew what type of horse he needed to win this novice hurdle at Sandown, and yet Immortal wasn't quite good enough. And the fact that he took him and Constitution Hill, the only two, to go to Ascot, I think he thinks Immortal is very good. And with that in mind, the fact that Authorised Speed managed to beat him, I think Authorised Speed is very, very good. And I could see him being the best of the British come Cheltenham Festival. If this was not trained by Gary Moore, no disrespect to Gary Moore, if this was trained by Nicky Henderson or a Paul Nicholls, I think it'll be a lot shorter in the market. You're looking at 14s, 16s now in the market, rather than the 33s and 25s you can get. So my horse to follow for 2023, after all of that, is Authorised Speed.